You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Alongside Mike Chappell and Matt Adams, I'm Dave Griffiths. Glad to have you along as the Colts get set for what is probably, or very close to inarguably, their toughest test of the season so far, with the 9-1 Detroit Lions.
And they've already played Buffalo.
Exactly.
Which tells you where.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Like them and the Steelers, who are also 8-2 for somehow.
Caught them at a good time.
It certainly did. It certainly did. So, not to say that the Colts haven't played tough teams already, but the 9-1 Lions, especially lately, on their 8-game win streak, have been something else. We've got plenty to talk about from Detroit. I fulfill a promise that I made to you last week. That's going to come in quite some time, so don't worry. Just be patient for it.
Are you really going to go there?
You'll see. You'll see the promise that I made. Yeah, it's coming. Okay, those followers and our loyal listeners to the podcast will know. Hopefully, what I'm talking about.
A Buster Douglas moment.
Exactly what I'm referring to. It's a good tease there,
nice
chap.
Tease, nice tease.
I approve that. A fan favorite, I say with a question mark. Uniform is back on the field, and so is a player at a position that Mike Chappell thinks is the most important position on the field, and he is an old. You could certainly say that he made a significant contribution to the Colts while he was here. Well, he's back. And we'll get into all those stories, but we're going to begin.
You're just teasing all
I know,
over the place.
There's so much to talk about today.
I got to be less vague in the show notes to start
exactly.
things off.
No. It's good. I took your specificity right here, and I made it vague so that people listening say, "Ooh, what's Dave talking about? What could be talking?"
I was going to turn this off, but now I've got to listen.
No, exactly. Yeah. We started it. Now we got to finish it. We're going to start, however, with 3 former Indianapolis Colts are semifinalists for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The Hall has cut the list down to 25 names in the modern era, of course, and that list includes Reggie Wayne, Robert Mathis, and Adam Vinatieri in his first year eligible for the Hall of Fame. Vinny is one first-timer in this list of 25. The other first-timers are Eli Manning, Luke Kuechly, Terrell Suggs, Earl Thomas, and Marshall Yanda. So those are the kind of highlight names. Everyone else you've seen there before. Guys like Torrey Holt back again, just like Reggie's been waiting for a while.
Jared
Allen's back. Fred Taylor's back. Lots of names there that we have discussed over the past couple years that are still trying to break through into that final round that Dwight Freeney was fortunate enough to do last year in his second year of eligibility. So, Chap, as we have well documented here on the Colts Blue Zone podcast, you indeed are a selector for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You get to sit in on the meetings every year. You get to debate the merits of players when they cut down to 15. Eventually, that's how many you guys discuss when the time comes around, Super Bowl week. You get to lay the smack down to Peter King and anyone else who decides to disagree with you on various topics, and all the other selectors as well. Don't want to just single out Peter. Everyone gets the ire of Chappell if they stand in his way. But for those 3 players, what's your argument for them? Since you can give us a brief one now that you can get into at much greater length later as we get closer to the date.
If I'm handicapping him, Vinny, I think he's first ballot. To be first ballot, you have to be, were you the best over a long period of time? He's a member of the 100-year anniversary team in all-time leading scorer, 4 Super Bowls, which he won 2 of them with like second kicks. He really got the Patriots dynasty going with those 2 kicks in the tuck game.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't make those, what are the Patriots? Maybe they're that good. I don't know. I think he's first ballot, but then he's a kicker. So we'll see. Reggie, I'm hitting my head against the wall. I don't know what else people want. I was upset that Andre Johnson got in before Reggie. They've got very similar stats, although Reggie's are better.
Although Reggie's are better.
Reggie's anchor is that he played with Peyton and on Andrew Luck for most of his career, and Andre Johnson's was Matt Schaub,
right,
and a bunch of guys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you play with who you play with. Robert Mathis has not gotten past 25. Maybe he will this year. I try to tell people that so many people around here think that Mathis was the better player than Freeney. And I can understand that. Nationally, it's not seen that way. Freeney was one, and there was a huge gap to Mathis. So we'll see. What I'm looking forward to most is the discussion with Vinny, because he's the all-time kicker and all-time scorer and all that stuff. In Eli Manning. I think Eli Manning is going to be a fascinating discussion, argument, whatever it is, because he's one of those that, except for 2 years, he was just a guy. I mean, he was just a guy. But those 2 years, he won Super Bowls.
And beat the Patriots.
And
one of them was the perfect Patriots.
Right. So we'll see. But it's always interesting. And what I urge people to remember, you only get 5 modern era guys in.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that Luke Kuechly might be first ballot. I'll give you that, but I think he's not an overwhelming first ballot guy. Mm-hmm. So let's say that Kuechly and Vinny get in. That leaves you 3. And you've got hold all the 10 guys who didn't make it into the hall last year.
Jared Allen's still waiting.
Yeah, Torrey Holt.
Torrey Holt's still waiting.
And Antonio Gates.
Gates, yeah, it's a really good one. I was surprised he didn't make it in last year. He didn't get in.
He had a suspension one year for PEDs. Mm-hmm. That's one, I think, where you say, okay.
That's something that comes up in your discussion as well with everybody in the room.
Yeah, because it's on the field. It keeps you off the field. And I think with guys have that blemish, I think it merits, okay, not this year, next year. Because there's something that, again, a first ballot guy needs to be sort of unblemished.
Right.
Marshall Yand has got a tremendous career.
Yes, he does.
Tremendous career.
Like, you might not know the name, but boy, he was a hoss for the Ravens for a long time.
Right, so we'll see. But it's always interesting. And we talked to Reggie today, and he's so tired of talking about it. He said sort of like they know where I am.
Can't you guys just replay the interview that I did last year?
Right. Well, and I'll have to do some copy on him, and that's kind of what it is where do you go different? But one last thing is, like with Reggie's weight, this is his 6th year. Edgerrin waited 6 or 7, and he kept calling it a dog and pony show because he got tired of waiting.
Right.
But once he got in, you're in. They don't say, yeah, this is a Hall of Famer, and it took him 7 years. It took him 1 year. No, once you're in, you're in. But having to wait this long for Reggie is wearing on him. And in a few years, you're going to have Larry Fitzgerald is going to be eligible.
Yep.
Jason Witten, he's an interesting guy to talk about. But to tell a guy to wait, you'll get in, that sounds really nice, but they're tired of waiting.
I agree with your take that Eli Manning is going to be an interesting discussion, because you can't write the story of the NFL without Eli Manning because of his significance in those 2 Super Bowl runs. You can't do it. Playing in New York and in the center of its own world for sure, and arguably the sports world or the United States world, as being a significant cultural, sports, whatever, etc. City. But you look at his numbers. He was what was he, like a one? I thought I saw today.
He's 500.
Exactly, he's a 500 quarterback. Exactly,
with the 2 Super Bowl years
and 117.
Right,
that was his record as a starting quarterback. He was never an All-Pro. Not once was he considered the best in the NFL, or even the second best.
Top 5, not
probably.
an MVP.
No,
right?
Never an MVP.
Yeah, it's a murky one.
Yeah, like I would think it's impossible to put him in the first ballot. I just think it's not possible. And this is a discussion, I think, for you, Chap, that will be started this year and that will be kicked into high gear in future years, because I think there will be enough pushback, might be the wrong word, but hesitation to make him the first ballot guy. Is he popular? Heck yes. I think he is bloomed after his football career into an incredible...
The Manning cast has shown you a side of Eli you never saw.
Media savvy, funny guy, the perfect foil for Peyton and his seriousness. Yes. Like, those guys are amazing together. It's almost like they're brothers or something, and they've been doing this their entire lives. Like, he's awesome, and that's what will garner him more attention, I think, and more love from people who want to see him in there, to be honest, because of their affection for the Mannings and how the Mannings have contributed to football even beyond their playing careers. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting discussion. And after that, plenty more discussions to be had. Gosh, all of us here, every Colts fan, I'm sure everyone listening is in Reggie's corner and wants to see him in the Hall because they recognize the significance that he had. You can say he played with Peyton, but he still needed to get open.
He played with Curtis Painter and Dan Orlovsky, too.
Played them as well.
Kerry Collins.
Yep, and helped Andrew Luck break into the league,
They re-signed him.
And like no one else, they signed Reggie.
Because they knew Luck needed a reliable target. Mm-hmm. I realize that doesn't play really into the Hall of Fame thing, but it shows you how the Colts valued it. Remember, it was Reggie or Pierre Garçon, who was
an up-and-coming
8 or 9 years younger,
yep.
And had some pretty good years in Washington.
Yes,
I think
he
it
did.
was.
Mm-hmm. That's
a good receiver.
Yeah, you could make the case then as a GM, we want these guys to grow together. We want them to develop and their relationship to become what could be Manning and Harrison. Maybe not to that level, obviously,
right.
but that's what you would say in the press conference, something like that. We want them to grow together and to develop together, and we think that in 5 or 6 years we're going to be talking about these guys as one of the elite quarterback wide receiver tandems in the league. And they did not do that. They chose the guy who was on the tail end of his career to try to buoy Luck into a Hall of Fame career itself. Of course, we know how that worked out, and we don't have to get into that too much. The Indianapolis Colts are coming off a win over the Jets, 28-27, snapping a 3-game losing skid. Indy back in the winning column. They are 5-6 on the year after the victory. Certainly not a perfect game. Offense was different than we had seen in weeks past.
In a good way.
Who would have thought that running your quarterback, your mobile quarterback, your guy who you call a unicorn, and the unique traits and Superman traits and superhero traits, who would have thought that actually running the ball with him would be a good idea? Well, it certainly seemed like the Colts did not think that was the case until last week when they finally broke out
Were they just trying to protect him? I don't know. We don't want to get him hurt. I don't know.
But that's it's so weird to me that's what they would think because you need to win games in the NFL. Are you trying to see, can he do it with just his arm? Let's keep trying. Well, you keep losing like
but
this.
But
you
drafted him because of what
exactly.
he did. That's the whole thing. You knew what he did. You knew the risk that went with his game. And it's funny. I saw a clip from Dan Campbell talking to the Detroit media.
Really good clip.
And it was good. Mm-hmm. Somebody said, about his season, and he sort of said, you can't look back to the first part of the season. He said they've taken the handcuffs off. And that's exactly right. And Richardson only had, 10 carries for 32 yards?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not a huge number.
No, but the
timely.
But the threat and gosh, around the goal line. Why would this team ever throw the ball around the goal line?
I don't know.
Why? Absolutely.
And just not him, but he and Taylor. So yeah, I think that for whatever reason I don't know whether.
Even with 3 rookies starting on the offensive line, keep running the dang ball.
And it showed.
It definitely showed.
But I wonder if Shane, we were talking again, we talk a lot in the press room, that Shane is throw to score, run to win. And maybe he was a little stubborn with his approach on how to do things with Richardson. And you got to throw. I mean, he threw for 272, which was a career high. But the emphasis on the run was there. And even everybody says that Richardson sort of gets geeked up when you start the game running the ball.
It's kind of like how Andrew Luck always liked to get that first lick of the game.
Yeah, just one. Sort of say, okay, now we're going. But yeah, it's really, so they've taken the handcuffs off, and it's really will be interesting to see where this goes. And if he gets hurt, that's part of your evaluation for the future. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, he can't stay healthy, so what are we going to do?
Right.
But I'm really curious. A lot of us wrote this week about, as great as that game was, well, then do it again. This can't be a one-hit wonder. I'd love to have a compilation of music on one-hit wonders. There'd be some great music.
Oh yeah.
But you've got to have sustained. And I'm not saying every week to 2-run touchdowns and 272, but you've got to be effective in what you do and stick with it.
Speaking of effectiveness, the Colts defensive line certainly showed some last week. Kwity Paye, a pair of sacks, including the game winner at the very end, taking down Aaron Rodgers and ending the GM's career there for the Jets. It's always nice, like when you feel good if your team ends the career. Saying you feel good about somebody getting fired is a harsh way to put it, but you're like, yeah, we did that. Okay,
it's kind of like Carolina. Whenever they played somebody, was it overseas? That coach got fired.
Yeah.
So, I thought the defensive line played really well.
They did,
and they're
Latu got a sack finally.
Right.
It'd been a long
and they're
time
getting
coming.
closer to
close.
getting Tyquan Lewis back.
Yep.
Probably another week. We talked
Started
to him
his
today.
practice this week. Yes,
Right, but he hasn't played for 5 weeks.
Yeah, he was on the IR back on October.
He had
1st.
surgery on
UCL,
yes. Whatever the UCL is in your elbow.
Mm-hmm.
But he said initially it was, they thought 6 weeks. I think this is week 7, I think. But, maybe he comes back and plays this week. You're talking rotational.
Right.
15, 20 plays.
I was going to say, maybe he, turns into at the start of the year what they were doing with Latu.
Right.
Just get him out for a few and have Latu kind of the main guy out there and just flip their roles.
Maybe he gives Latu up below.
spell,
So
yeah.
very curious.
A great way to get back in the win column. The Jets were favored by 4 points in this game, so Vegas was wrong in one of the rare times. But the Colts played another one possession game that is now 10 games out of their 11 this year that have been within 8 points. They just keep bringing it down to the final plays and the final minutes. They're always in it, and about half the time they make it, and the other half of the time they don't. And that's kind of what happens a lot in the NFL with mediocre teams. Is like you can figure it out sometimes. That's what they are. Like you gotta figure out a way to be more dynamic if you want to stop being mediocre on both offense and defense. That's what the best teams in the league are. They're getting one of them this weekend. You're going to see out there at Lucas Oil Stadium why they're one of the best teams. I promise. No matter who ends up on top at the end of the day, you're going to see why this Detroit Lions team is a good team. They're going to show you from time to time at least what they can do and why they have won 9 games, 8 in a row, by an average those 8 wins of 20 points, and they're scoring more points than anyone else in the NFL. There's just no doubt in my mind that they are going to score, and it's going to be impressive out there. But we'll see if the Colts score more. We'll get into that later in the show. The Colts are bringing back Mark Glowinski. Remember that name?
Good player.
Guard, Mark
Absolutely.
Glowinski. Mike Chappell's favorite position on the football field, just a guard.
Me and Q.
But, yeah, exactly. But Glowinski was back here in 2017 to 2021, so he was part of that 21 team that saw Jonathan Taylor run for a career high in yards, touchdowns, and all that. He was on that offensive line for a good long time, right next to Kelly and Braden Smith, and whoever it might have been on the other side before Braden Smith, him for a year there. So Glowinski comes as Will Fries is still, of course, out for the season with his injury. And the undrafted free agent Dalton Tucker had been your starter for the past couple weeks. What happens is your undrafted rookie plays like an undrafted rookie. And the development is like an undrafted rookie, And if you want to shore things up and run the ball with your running quarterback all the time, you want to bring in someone who is more consistent. Might you still want to develop Dalton Tucker? Sure. Might
Absolutely.
you still think that he's going to be something in the future? Sure. But right now, if you have your eyes set on actually running your offense in the particular way that they ran it in New York, and you want to beat teams, Chap, that are better than the New York Jets, then you need a better offensive line, and I think that's what this move kind of signifies.
And also, there's been a regression, the line in general, but then, too, with Dalton Tucker, no longer does he have Ryan Kelly to his left. Mm-hmm. He's got Bortolini, and then again with Ryman, there's just if Ryman's playing, maybe Bortolini plays, or
Tucker
Gonzalez plays right guard.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. But when you play three rookies, and one of them's undrafted, and the other two are a third and a fourth rounder. You say, boy, they're playing pretty well, but they're still rookies. And the more you ask them to do, like with the undrafted, any undrafted guy, you say, well, maybe that's why he was undrafted. Mm-hmm. So, but that doesn't mean that these guys don't and won't figure into your future. But and again, with Glowinski, how quick can he turn around and play? He's not played since January. He lives here, like I said, he lives here. He's been working out. He said he was working out like yesterday. He did his workout, and then he gets a call, and the coach said, "Hey, you want to come and work out?" He said, "I'll be right there."
It's like, I just worked out, but I can do that again.
That's
do
right.
it again. Yeah.
So it's just how quickly. I can't imagine a scenario where he comes in and plays 60 snaps. I just can't. That would be ridiculous. But the line pass protection wasn't that strong last week. I mean, Richardson avoided 3, 4.
Had guys hanging off of his back and still completing throws on occasion.
The Jets, what were they run defense like going into the game? 20 something.
I think they were maybe 26, something like that.
I think the longest run was like 10 yards.
10 yards from Taylor.
Yeah.
So it's got to get better, and it's the offensive line, and it's understandable, but it doesn't mean you just accept it. You try to get better.
Bernard Ryman, with a knee injury, still did not participate in this week's Wednesday walkthrough, which is becoming the Colts' modus operandi, which I already got into last week. I don't feel like I need to again.
Dave loves the concept
of
the walkthrough.
It's the best. It's the absolute best idea in the world. So Ryman, once again, did not participate in a walkthrough.
They had a walkthrough, and they won.
And yeah, good for them. They won. And Bernard Ryman did not participate because he wasn't fit enough with his knee injury to walk through in practice on a Wednesday. Does that rule him out for Sunday? No,
but not a great indication.
Is it a good indication?
It doesn't give you a lot of confidence.
Exactly.
But we'll see. Like we always talk about, the Friday injury report's really what you're going to zero in on.
But
except if he doesn't practice today,
then it's real.
I don't worry too much about tomorrow.
Right. Braden Smith with a foot injury was limited in Wednesday's injury report as well. Michael Pittman listed as a full participant, as he was all last week with his back injury.
They both practiced today, too.
They did? All right.
Just checking
good deal. The Twitters?
The guys who were the James
the gentlemen
Boyds
out there? Okay, we're still on Twitter. We're not doing Blue Sky yet. We're all just following everyone else on Twitter. I'm not.
I'm on Blue Sky, but
good for you.
No, I may not.
We're gonna stay on Twitter for now. Where that's where the action still tends to be. So that's where I am for now as well.
Because sports is a big part
huge
of the platform.
It is.
It's
very
hard
much
to just
so.
It's just hard to pick up and move.
It's the camaraderie. It's everyone watching it together.
I can ignore the trash, and there's trash on there.
That's my point.
To get what I want.
You block. That's what those what those are for. Anyway, I'm not here to get into a moral or political discussion, but anyway, let's move on to a fairly clean injury report for both teams. The Lions did have 5 players listed on their practice report, but all were full participants there. So let's take a look at those Detroit Lions. 9-1 this year, in first place in the NFC North. Their lone loss came in week 2 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, back when the Buccaneers were playing like world beaters. They lost like 20-16 or something, so it was the only game where the Lions offense just was really, really hampered for whatever reason. Jared Goff has led the way at quarterback, throwing for nearly 2,500 yards in their 10 games. 73% completion percentage. 7-3. Those are Drew Brees numbers.
Amazing.
Yeah. And for a quarterback that was the afterthought of the Matthew Stafford deal, that was in some circles thought to really just be thrown in there because they needed to get rid of him, and they couldn't have them both together.
He's just a cast-off
please
in this
take
deal.
him.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you can do whatever you want with him. Detroit found their guy, which props to Detroit and to Dan Campbell and to their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson.
It was a win-win trade.
It was completely win-win for both franchises. The Rams got their Super Bowl, so they're fantastic. They would have given up more. Like, they got their Super Bowl, like I said. And Stafford's still playing now. I mean, he's battled some injuries after that Super Bowl, but they got the Super Bowl. And the Lions have an offense centered around a quarterback that has been surprising people for the past couple of years. 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He's been sacked 18 times this year. On the ground, they have a heck of a 1-2 punch, and it starts with Jahmyr Gibbs, the second-year player out of Alabama, I believe. 133 carries for him, 137 carries for David Montgomery. But Gibbs is averaging 6 yards per carry. 6 yards per carry. I mean,
that's Jim Brown territory.
It is. Syracuse legend Jim Brown.
Why did I do that?
Mike, we've talked about this.
I know. I apologize.
8 touchdowns for Gibbs as well. 7 runs of 20 or more yards. Also has 23 catches for 256 yards and another touchdown. Montgomery is the kind of the workhorse in more short yardage situations and in near the goal line. In spite of Gibbs' 8 touchdown runs, Montgomery has 10 touchdown runs. He's averaging 4.3 per carry, has nearly 600 yards rushing himself, 21 catches for 205 yards as well. And they have some playmakers on the outside, too. Amon-Ra St. Brown was an All-Pro, I believe, last year. I know he was a Pro Bowler, but I think he was All-Pro as well. 65 catches, 685 yards, 9 touchdowns for him. Good heavens. Like, do these guys have guys who don't have, like, close to 10 touchdowns?
It's Madden numbers on these guys, man.
It's Manning numbers is what it is. It's the Stokely and Wayne and Clark and Harrison. And like everybody is approaching 10 touchdowns because that's how often these guys score. Jameson Williams, 24 catches, 538 yards, is averaging 22.4 yards per catch. Alec Pierce type numbers himself there in the NFC. And also has 4 touchdowns. 11 catches for Jameson Williams of 20-plus yards. Big play guy. Sam Laporta, the tight end, 32 catches, 366 yards, 3 touchdowns for him.
Tight ends hurt these guys
they have
every week.
A couple of them, like one after the other. And, yep, so those are the big-time playmakers for the offense. On defense, we'll get into the numbers in a bit, but you can't overlook what the Detroit defense has done. We'll explain why a little bit later. For sacks... tackles rather. Linebacker Jack Campbell leads the team with 78 tackles. Safety Brian Branch, who's having a tremendous season, is a great playmaker at safety for them. Has 57 tackles, very much in the line of a Kyle Hamilton. I know Colts fans saw him last year with the Ravens do some really good things. The Notre Dame kid.
Never blocked him off the edge.
Yeah, exactly. Had like 3 sacks and like 4 plays or whatever it was. At least it certainly seemed like that.
I don't remember that at all, Dave.
Yeah. And
neither does Gardner Minshew.
Exactly. Yeah, he probably doesn't. Aleem McNeil leads the team with 3.5 sacks. Malcolm Rodriguez, Josh Pascal, Trevor Nowaski have 2 sacks each. So no one player that's especially dynamic at getting after the quarterback. It's just kind of coming from a lot of different teams. And they don't have one player because their one player, Aiden Hutchinson, is out for the season. He still leads the team with 7.5 sacks, to be fair, but he went on injured reserve in mid-October. They have maybe some pipe dreams to get him back for a late playoff run. But with Hutchinson, that defense was incredible.
There was talk they were going to try to replace him with a trade or whatever, and it never materialized.
Right. So I mean, there were some players like, who was it? Hassan Reddick, who was with the Jets, who wasn't reporting, and then they went out and they signed Devontae Adams, and then he's like, oh, I feel better, I'll show up here. And that's gone really well for the Jets.
It's worked out well for the Jets.
Yes,
the whole thing
worked out
but
very well.
It's Robert Sala's fault.
It is. It's all Robert Sala's fault.
It's all his fault.
Thank God they got rid of him so they could move past it and really move on.
He's the guy that stands up there and says, "Not me."
Exactly.
Not me.
It's terrible when a franchise just puts all the weight of the world and all the blame on one guy who it's clearly not the fault of that one guy. When you look at what the team has done,
don't mention his name.
I mean, you look at like the next season, especially for and you see like how teams blow up after you blame everything, the fault of the whole franchise on one guy, and yeah. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
27-7.
The Lions did trade for Zadarius Smith. They did from the Browns. They gave up a 5th rounder, a 6th rounder for Smith, and a 7th rounder. Matt has kind of here. I don't know if that's
they got Smith and the 7th rounder for the 5th and the 6th.
Yep, there we go. I got you there.
Sorry, it could have been. It was phrased inelegantly as often as the case.
Son of a gun. Kirby Joseph has 7 interceptions at safety, and their other safety, like I mentioned, Brian Branch, has 4 himself. So maybe I should be singing the praise of Kirby Joseph more. It just seems like Branch has made like some more game-winning plays at clutch times for them this year. But both of those guys at the back end, I mean, 11 combined interceptions from your 2 safeties is just a ludicrous number. So you have a team that likes to go deep like the Colts do, and they're not afraid to
they're going to be sitting back there waiting for you.
Exactly. Like they've got to know. Like they've got to be ready. You've got to figure if you're Anthony Richardson that they're going to be there. Like you've got to know where they're dropping back before you chuck that ball. And if it's one-on-one between a safety and Alec Pierce, I say you give Alec Pierce the chance, nevertheless.
Yeah, get it up there.
Yeah, but if that guy's coming over to take it away when there's like just as safety help, then boy, you got to really be careful because they have proven to be ball hawks this year so far.
Well, and this is a game you want to limit Detroit's possessions, not give them more on perhaps a short field. So it's really it's one of those where the Colts again have to be aggressive but careful.
Mm-hmm. The Lions are plus 159 points in differential this year. They've scored 336. They have given up 177. That will win you a lot of games.
Yes, it will.
And to be fair, a good portion of that point differential has come
from the AFC South.
Against the AFC South. They have not played the Colts yet, but they beat the Texans only 26-23 by 3.
Was that the 5-interception game?
Yeah, and they gave up 5 interceptions in that game.
Mm-hmm. But they beat the Jaguars just last week, 52-6. So the Colts would like to know.
They scored 7 straight touchdowns, and then they lost interest and got a field goal. 645 yards and 38. The 38 first downs are like the third most ever in the game. 38. That's crazy. That's 2 or 3 games worth for some teams.
I tell you what, we'll get to this in the rankings, but it was enough to kick the Jaguars down to the bottom of the league in time of possession.
Hey, wow.
All
the
right.
Colts no longer 32nd. Let's go. Matt with a nice stat right there. 52 points against the Jags, 52 also against the Titans. They beat them 52-14. So yikes. Major ouch. So combined against those two, 104-20. You beat them by combined 84 points. 84 of literally more than half of your point differential this year is against those two teams. Which congratulations, Titans and Jaguars, for carrying the banner for the AFC South.
Remember when we thought the AFC South might be a division to watch this year? That seemed like a long time ago.
Yes. Offensive rankings. The Lions, as I've mentioned before, are number 1 in the NFL in scoring, averaging 33.6 points per game. I believe that's about 3 points better than the next best team in second place. The Colts are 19th in scoring. They average 21.5 points per game. Lions are 3rd in total offense in yards, averaging 395 almost yards per game. Colts are 19th at 320 yards per game. Lions are 6th in passing yards, 242 per game. Colts 21st in passing yards, 202 per game. Lions 3rd in rushing, 152 yards rushing per game, 4.7 yards per carry. Colts down in 16th in rushing, 118.5 yards and 4.5 yards per carry. Kind of talked about their rushing, their two guys that they have a little bit. So, I mean, you look at Goff and you look at the explosive guys they have outside, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, an all-pro. That kind of grabs your attention. Jameson Williams, 22 yards per catch. But they get it done first on the ground. And that is very much in the vein of their head coach and in his image. If he made a team in his image, this is the team. We'll punch you in the face, man. And then they'll go right over the top on you and steal your soul.
That's what's hard is a lot of times you can say, we're going to take this away and have a better chance to win. I mean, you can't do that with this team because there's too many people to take away.
Mm-hmm. And they'll also be creative. Like Ben Johnson is not afraid to throw a flea flicker in there, or they will fake something on special teams. So every play, you need to be focused and you need to be on it, because if you're not, they're going to take advantage of it, and they have this year so far a couple times. Defensively, you might think with a strong offense that the defense is trying to play catch up. Well, the Lions are 5th in the NFL in points allowed, so 1st in scoring, 5th in points allowed. That's pretty good. Their average only 17.7 points given up per game. The Colts are 19th at 22.7 points given up per game. Lions, what they struggle in is rushing. Kind of like the Jets did last week. The Colts went and faced them. Their running game never really got off the ground in New York, but we'll see if it gets off the ground back here in Indianapolis, as the Colts are. Wait a second. I'm backwards. I'm sorry.
The Lions are good on defense.
Yeah, they're good. They're good on. Yeah, they're good in. I read that wrong. I'm an idiot.
Them. I did a little reversey on you there.
Son of a gun, Matt. It's all your fault. No, this is completely my fault.
Pay attention to the notes, Dave.
I know.
It's all
I
there for you.
Lions 5th in points allowed. Lions also 5th in rushing yards allowed. They only give up 94.8 yards per game.
Under 100 yards a game.
The Colts are 28th in rushing yards allowed, giving up 143 per game. So that is not good. You have a weak rushing defense and one of the best rushing offenses in the league coming in to put it to the test.
It's gotten better with Buck back.
Yes,
it has. I mean, just duh. He's your best defensive player, but still, it's. We pointed at how those first 2 weeks run defense just killed them. Whatever it was, 400 and some yards.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And how it was going to be a battle the rest of the season to get those numbers respectable. But teams have been getting these averages are legit. Last week they held the Jets to 90 yards, but
they're the Jets.
They're the Jets
also.
But it's every week it's been 140, 150, and if you're not on point this week, they're going to I don't think they would mind a bit running for 30 times.
See, and usually what happens is they'll try to run up the middle on the Colts there. You got Grover and you got Buck there. That's not been very effective for teams. But then they start going around the perimeter. You get the linebackers in some garbage, and they're just not able to make the plays, and that's where the yards have been for other teams.
And that's where the explosive plays are from these guys that you pointed out.
Where the Lions do give up some yards, I promise I'm reading Matt's rundown correctly now. The Lions are 27th in the NFL in passing yards allowed per game. They're allowing 232, almost 233 yards passing per game. The Colts, though, are way down 26th themselves, only averaging 231 yards passing per game. So if you can gain yards against them through the air, fantastic. Then they'll pick it off in the red zone with one of their safeties. You never want to give up yards, but if your pair of safeties have 11 interceptions, you can forgive it. It was like Colts fans saw over the years with Matt Eberflus. If you gave up yards and then Darius Leonard just stole the ball because he was otherworldly at that, then fantastic. You can live with giving up some yards. And we will ask, and we still do, Gus Bradley about yards, every week. Well, what about these yards that you're giving up? Well, points are most important. And if you can get the takeaways, you're going to keep those points off the scoreboard. And that's what the Lions have done. And defensive coordinators, to their credit, will always say, yeah, we want to give up fewer yards, of course. Always want to give up fewer yards. And we'll look at that. We'll try to do that. But they know that dynamic players will erase yards. Right. They will not matter at the end of the day.
And then you have the dynamic in that this is a team that gets up on other teams, that gets leads, can run the ball, and is stout against the other team's run. So that leaves the offense with only one option, and that's the pass. So a lot of those pass yards are a consequence of that.
Overall, the Lions are 7th in yards allowed. They're allowing about 302 yards per game. The Colts are down at 29th in yards allowed, giving up nearly 390 yards per game. Lions aren't quite as good as the Bills in turnover ratio, but they are darn close to it. They are
over
plus
the Bills,
9.
plus 11?
They were plus 11 when the Colts played them. I don't know what they are now. They could be even better than that. But the Lions are plus 9. They have forced 19 turnovers, 14 interceptions, 14 stinking interceptions.
That's a lot, man.
That's more than one per game. 5 fumble recoveries as well. They've also turned it over 10 times, 9 interceptions. You look at Jared Goff.
5 in one game, though. 5 in one game.
Exactly. So you always want to look at consider those outliers. Erase the worst game, erase the best game, and what do you have in the middle? And you still have a team that generates a lot of turnovers and maybe isn't quite as bad as turning the ball over themselves as that stat, if you just look at it, seems to say. Now, the Colts are -1 in turnover ratio. They've forced 17 turnovers themselves. Not too bad. 8 interceptions and 9 fumble recoveries, which that's a really good stat to have forced 9 fumbles and to recover 9 fumbles rather through 11 games on the year. Like they're good at clawing for the ball. They're good at punching the ball. And that is something that is a cultural thing that is left over from the Eberflus era, and that Leonard did really well. And that went to guys like Zaire and Speed and to the defensive line as well, and Kenny Moore, of course, too, as well. Like that's something that was preached for a long time and is kind of stuck with the guys. And so 9 fumble recoveries for them this year. But they've also surrendered 18 turnovers with 12 interceptions, 6 fumbles lost. The 17 turnovers, Colts are 4th best in the NFL, which is good. Of course, the Lions have 19, like I said. They're better.
They're 18 giveaways.
18 giveaways?
Change that, yeah.
Golly, Matt. And their 18 giveaways are 2nd worst in the NFL. So a very, we'll call it a roller coaster, which is exactly what we were promised. But that was kind of more focused on the quarterback.
Right. And the Colts were even going into last week's game. Obviously, they were -1 against the Jets because of the fumble on the first drive of that second half that really let that be a game.
Mm-hmm. But here is the kicker. As Matt already alluded to earlier, the Colts are no longer 32nd, dead last in the NFL, in time of possession. Set off your fireworks, guys. Colts now 31st.
Finally got there.
In time of possession with 26 minutes and 40 seconds. They also did pretty well against the Jets in time of possession. What do you know? You had a running quarterback that I know the running numbers were not exceptional, but it kept the offense on the field. And you know who had gas there late in the fourth quarter to get after the quarterback? Quiddy freaking Pay.
Quiddy Pay.
And made that sack because he wasn't on the field for 77 plays before that probably, and was still able to kind of knife through an offensive guard who just looked completely disinterested in blocking at that play and just snuck inside the tackle and got to Aaron Rodgers. I went back and looked at that play, and I was like, that guy has got to be destroyed in film session.
Just a turnstile over there.
Okay, I'm just walking over here. I'm kind of pretending to double team. Oh, sack. Oh, no. Game's over. Oh, no. Shoot. Anyway.
The game could have been over a play earlier if EJ Speed had not had his penalty, but
no.
That's okay.
It's
always one, isn't it?
Again, talking to the press room about that, and I tweeted it. I thought, I said, it's like he just does something dumb, and you live with it because he's a really good player, and they're fortunate that wasn't like a 15-yard penalty.
It's true.
So you just have to harness the silliness. And he's not a bad guy. But it's just
every once in a while. And you have to realize what it means by every once in a while too. It's not in the level of TJ Green dumb, which is at an otherworldly level. If you all remember TJ Green, if you don't remember it, God bless you that you have successfully erased that era from your memory, and you're able to move on without that knowledge in your heads. Don't look it up. You really don't need to. But yeah, Speed he's had some of those penalties every once in a while that just.
Well, he had the one the week before. He wasn't penalized, but he was fined. It was a run up the middle by Allen, and he was fined $11,000 for punching him.
I thought he was punching for the ball. I saw that play.
I guess, but he's
trying to get.
But he kept hitting him.
Exactly. He kept hitting him in the head. Buddy kept hitting him in the head. So it's like
football's brown. The helmet is not.
Right. Idea okay. Execution not okay.
But he's had a couple of late hits, and there was one out of bounds, and it's just, it's not just once or twice. It's more than that. He just needs to erase the extra stuff from his game. I went back and looked at the delay of game, and I thought it was kind of harmless.
I didn't think it was as bad as I have seen it in the league before.
Right, but again, he's a really good player, but that just gave the Jets a little bit more assistance in a really bad situation.
Well, anyway, the Colts are 31st in time of possession. The Lions are up at 11th in time of possession, which is probably what you would expect with a team that's pretty darn good in running the ball. They'd be above average, but also pretty explosive. So they're not going to be number one up there.
So, sometimes time of possession is just, it doesn't mean much. It just doesn't.
When you're last, it means a little something.
Well, yes, but I go back to when Peyton was here and the Colts had the ball for 13 minutes against the Dolphins and they beat them because they made explosive plays. I think this is the game where time of possession matters. It really does. You've got to help the defense by sustaining drives and eating the clock. Even that may not help because of the explosive as the Lions are, but don't give them 13 possessions. Give them 9 if you can or whatever. But then again, it's time of possession. Then do something with it.
Right.
Score. So it's funny. I saw a couple of stats on the Lions, and I got to double check what one of them means. The 3 biggest blowouts in the league this year have been Lions games. Mm-hmm. The 2 against the AFC South, and then they smoked Dallas, 42-7, whatever it was.
Yeah, that was a rough one too.
And they've had 4 games where they've had more touchdowns than Golf has had incompletions. I'm guessing that means total touchdowns, but there have been a couple games where he's had more touchdown passes than incompletions.
Yeah.
So it's just an efficient.
So I guess that's how you get to 73%.
Yeah. Is that right? So it's a tough task. We've talked to some players, and like Julian Blackman said, well, you respect everybody, but you don't fear anybody. If you fear a team that's coming in, then you're lost. You're done. But it's the defense has got. I still don't trust the defense. I don't trust the defense. You tried to last week. Was it 5 straight possessions? No first downs, and then
they went soft right before halftime,
and then it carried over.
Carried over,
and these guys aren't good enough to do that. So, we're just going to see that they're about as healthy as you can be at this point. Defensively, I mean, realize Tyquan's out, and Juju Brents has been out most of the year, but they're in pretty good shape, but this is a different level of challenge.
It will be a 1:00 kickoff at Lucas Oil Stadium. The game will be broadcast on Fox 59 if you're in central Indiana. Our Colts Blue Zone pregame show still airs on CBS 4 at 11:30 Sunday morning. The Indiana Knights uniforms are back, guys. Yeah, how exciting. Back for the first time since last year's Browns game. How'd
that go?
Colts almost won.
Almost won.
Almost
Okay.
won.
Almost won. They scored a lot of points that game, and no one thought they
That's
would.
the one where the over-under was probably 38 or whatever, and they scored 70.
And both teams beat it. Yeah.
77 was it, or whatever
Yeah.
it was? 39, 38?
Yeah, it was the Darrell Baker Jr. game. The pass interferences or holdings. Or
One legit one they got
Yes.
hosed on.
They also knocked Deshaun Watson out of that one,
They
I
did,
think.
yes.
So,
started the path to Joe Flacco.
Yep.
Like the Colts played the Browns in the Indiana Lights uniforms, and next year Joe Flacco's the quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. It's a domino effect has led to that.
It's just marketing, and you see these teams do this, and
Right.
the game, it was like Houston, they were in those all red. They looked like
the battle red uniforms.
They looked like Crayola crayons. Remember how on Thursday nights they did I don't know what they called the color.
The color block or whatever
Right.
it was, where it was solids.
And Seattle goes out there in those lime. They look like
human highlighters.
So, hey, it's marketing, and God love them.
The Lions are favored by 7.5 points. So
That sounds about right.
yes, it does. The over-under for the game is 50.5 points. So they're anticipating something along the lines of a 29-22 ball game, right in there, 30-22. That's what Vegas says. So now it comes time for our predictions. And that means it is time for me to fulfill a promise that I made on this show last week. I said if the Indianapolis Colts beat the Jets, I think there's a good chance that they go and they beat the Lions the following week. But that's just not the only reason that I'm saying this. Not just because they won one game, and I think they have a little momentum. And I think Anthony Richardson had his best game as a pro. And I think they have a little momentum. They're coming back home, and they have a little momentum. But
You still trying to talk yourself into this?
no,
pick?
I'm not.
Sounds-
I'm
sounds
fully
kinda like it.
I'm fully talked myself into this. The Colts are beating the Lions, and you heard it here first on the Colts Blue Zone podcast from myself, Dave Griffiths at DaveG_sports on Twitter. And if it doesn't happen, whatever. I'll live with that. I'll live with being wrong. I've been wrong before.
We will remind you,
and I'm sure you will, and that's perfectly fine. But it will be unbearable for you if we come back next week and I am right, because you know what happens when I'm
I would
right.
deal with that if that were the case.
Exactly. You'll deal with that. And I'll deal with being wrong. It's cool. But anyway, I do have reasons that I think they're going to beat the Lions. And the chief of them is something that I tweeted out yesterday. Every year, for the past 5 years, the Indianapolis Colts have beaten a team that has at least made a conference final in the playoffs, the AFC Championship or the NFC Championship. 2023, they beat the Ravens in overtime. Ravens went on to lose the AFC Championship last year. 2022, as abysmal as that team was, beat the Super Bowl champion eventually,
That
Kansas
was
City
pre-Jeff
Chiefs.
Saturday.
That was pre-Jeff Saturday, yes. That was, yes. So, that was still Frank Reich. Beat the Chiefs. Thank you, Chris Jones, for having a potty mouth. Mm-hmm. In 2021, in a monsoon, the Colts beat the San Francisco 49ers.
Out there.
In San Francisco.
Now, some of these have been road games, too, which is even more shocking.
Exactly. And beat them 30-18. Pretty good result there against a championship caliber team.
Who's the quarterback?
I remember who the quarterback was. Michael Pittman had a pretty good game himself, too, in that game. Michael Pittman had arguably his best year that year in 2021.
Just mention his name.
Carson Wentz.
Okay.
He
Move
got
on.
the 30-18 victory over there over the San Francisco 49ers. Of course, Matt Ryan got a victory over the Kansas City Chiefs, too. So, 2020, the Colts beat the Green Bay Packers. I believe the 14-3 Green Bay Packers that year, who made it to the NFC Championship game. That was a 34-31 thriller in overtime at Lucas Oil Stadium. One of the best games that I've ever been to. Just a great game. 2019, the first year in this streak, they beat the Chiefs again that year. The eventual Super Bowl champion Chiefs.
Then they lost
Was
them
that
in
at
the playoffs.
Arrowhead?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then they lost to him in the playoffs. So
It was a Teray game.
it was the Komoko Teray game. Yep, you're right. And man, that was that team. Like we can go back on the 2019 team. Like that team was so set up for success, and then Andrew Luck retired, and they just got thrown for a complete loop. They haven't recovered from over the last 5 years. But anyway, we certainly don't need to get into that now. But all that to say, my point is the Indianapolis Colts beat a really, really good team every year. And I know people slid into my mentions saying, "Oh, they already beat the Steelers." So
I was going to say,
there you go.
The Steelers could be that.
Maybe they could be that team very much. They could be a team that makes the AFC Championship, but it could be this team.
But it didn't feel like it at the time.
No, it didn't.
Well, because Fields was their quarterback. He's not their quarterback now. No. This was, some of these wins also came early in the season, which this is a later season game. But yeah, the Steelers win doesn't hold a lot of water for me, mostly because of the quarterback change that they made.
And my favorite thing in my mentions has been people saying, "Well, everybody beats teams they shouldn't beat." Well, I'm like, okay, find me one other team that has beaten a conference championship team each of the past 5 years. Go ahead, let me know. No one's been able to find that right now. So the Colts have this crazy streak going, and as anyone in Vegas will tell you, you got to bet for streaks to continue. So that's why I'm betting on the Indianapolis Colts this week. It's going to be a 34-31 victory at Lucas Oil Stadium.
Boy, that'd be cool.
And they even up their record at 6-6 overall. Matt, you go next, and Chapel wrap us up.
I want to believe, Dave. I mean, I will say the first thing that came to mind was they beat the Ravens last year. I thought about that Kansas City game in 2022, how abysmal that team was. But I feel like this Lions team is on just a different level from a lot of these teams that the Colts have played. They're playing well right now. They've won 8 in a row. You look at those defensive and offensive rankings, you know where this is going. I'm going to go ahead and go with Detroit. I'm going to say 31-21.
Chap.
Yeah, I hope you're right again, because if they can steal this one, then you really like their.
It sets up things.
It
for
does.
The Colts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got all of a sudden Denver's a lot tougher out there, but then the last 4 are they're not walkovers, but they're like homecoming games.
It sets up a perfect 8-8 finale hosting the Jaguars for a chance to get into the playoffs, which is what the Colts do. They play the last week of the season to try to get in the playoffs.
Right. But no, I need to see Richardson pile a couple of games together and not come out this week, and regress, I guess is the word. And I just don't trust the defense, although it's kept them in games. This is a different animal. If the Colts can run for 150 and an average 4.5 a carry and control the ball and shorten the game, I like that chances. But this is one where it's going to get away from them. I think I've got 35-20. I hope it doesn't get worse than that. And if the defense plays better, they can smack me in the face and say, well, there you go. But I think this is a bridge too far. And on top of that, maybe the Lions will overlook the Colts. Not with Dan Campbell.
Yeah,
Same here.
That's not going to happen.
They're looking at a Thanksgiving Day matchup against the Bears next week.
Right.
They're all eyes on Thanksgiving.
Somebody mentioned that this is their road game, then they got 3 straight at home. Mm-hmm. So this stretch here, they've won 8 in a row since losing their only game to week 2 to who was it?
Bucks.
The Bucks. They're on a roll, and they can clinch home field. And home field means a lot. So I like the Lions here. I hope the Colts play well. It's going to be geeked. The crowd's going to be over the top, and get off to a good start and see where it takes you. But I just think in the long run, the Lions just have too much off. They got good defense. The offense is just overwhelming right now.
I agree with everything both you guys said. And the Indianapolis Colts are going to win this game.
34-31.
And I again,
did you
like
give a
I said,
score?
I hope you're right.
What's that?
Did you give a score?
I picked 35-20.
Okay. Yeah. Hope I'm right. I hope I'm
Hey,
right too.
if you are right, we'll give you your flowers next week.
Hail the Conquering Hero will play instead of our typical opening music, and it'll be completely unbearable for the first.
You will probably
bring out
be
the Syracuse fight song.
Yes, let's go.
You will be
Good
probably
idea,
the
Matt.
only one outside of West 56th Street that picks them.
I believe it.
So okay,
I believe it. All right. So. The Colts host the Lions, 1 p.m. kickoff, Fox 59 in Central Indiana. Listen to our Colts Blue Zone pregame show over on our partners there, CBS 4, at 11:30 Sunday morning. We certainly do appreciate you listening. Read all of Mike Chappell's work leading up to the game at fox59.com or cbs4indy.com. Follow him on Twitter at mchappell51. Matt Adams is at Statomatti. I'm Dave Griffiths at DaveG_sports. We'll see you next week on the Colts Blue Zone podcast.